I'll kick things off with probably starting with you, Zak, because you originally came through at Saracens. I'm not sure whether that was purely academy, but obviously came through there. And that's obviously a historic and prestigious academy. You know, we've seen the production line, which has come out the back of that. We know some of the stigmas, but also the reputation that they've got there. But I think what I'm quite keen to sort of understand is the selection process of getting involved in an academy with that sort of level, and what the environment was like there, the culture was like there, and then the type of folks that you were training alongside whilst you were coming through there.
Oh yeah, so to be fair, it was a pretty incredible experience. Looking back at it now, when you're in the moment and you're in that sort of environment, you take it all for granted. But now it's 10 years ago, and I'm looking back at it, I'm like, wow, I did play and train with some great players. Yeah, it all starts off when you're younger, you go through the county process. So I played for Kent. Kent County, and then I played. I can't remember. I think it was Essex, and then I got picked up. I was only 14. You don't really. Well, they just see a big lump, and they're like, off you go. Go on, we'll try and train him up, see what we can produce from him.
Yeah.
And so from 14 to 18, I was in the under 18s academy. It was good crack. Played with a lot of great players. A lot of the boys are still there now, to be fair, at Saracens. You like Marrow and Nick Tompkins, them boys are all still there. Doing well. Jack Singleton, who was my age, he's obviously doing well. He's at Toulon at the moment. And funnily enough, Singo was his agent at the time, was the one that got me to go to France. So he planted a seed, and then his agent contacted me and was like, I heard you want to go to France. I was like, yeah, I'd love to go to France. That was off the back of him, but no, it was played with some amazing players, and also went to Oaklands College, which was the college that was affiliated with Saracens. And at the time, we had a great team there as well. We got to the Ace League final. And if you look back at some of the players that are playing in that final back then, I remember there was Ellis Genge, there was numerous players that playing week in, week out in the Premiership now that was in the Hartby team that we had with the Oaklands team, and was just it was phenomenal rugby looking back on it now. You all just take it so for granted when you're younger though. It's just you're playing with your mates and you're enjoying yourself, but looking back on it, it's just like, wow, what a set of boys there was there.
Well, I think a lot of people forget when you're coming through a college level, how much that can really dictate where you move on to in rugby. When I'm doing a lot of the sort of linking on my side from like championship clubs, there's quite a clear line as to where people end up. Look at Quins, for example. Like people like Liner and such all coming through the same school system. They all end up going, and funnily enough, have the same agents, end up going overseas, so on and so forth. So it does start early. Exactly. And that makes sense. So I guess with you at Beau, obviously you came through a slightly sort of different process. You're over at Old Athamians that I think I played against years ago. So that's how I came across their name. You're obviously selected for the English system. I think it might have been the under 18s, but feel free to correct me. And you were playing at Hayes, Old Athamians, England, all at the same time. What was the culture like at sort of youth level within that system? And are you still in contact with those boys?
So funny enough, my rugby didn't really pick up until I went to sixth form. So Hayes was my school. So I moved from my original secondary school to Hayes. Funny enough, through a school teacher, because rugby's not played a lot in schools, like non-private schools. It's mainly football, state schools. So really close to one of the teachers there. My wife works at Hayes, and they're trying to build a rugby program there. So I went through that way, and I went, okay. So I went there for a trial. Turns out to be that about 20 of my mates were going to the same school, boys who I played with around the area and played against around the area. So we had a really good 2 years there. I think it was the first state school to get into into a semi-final for the Vars. Well, it was playing the Vars, but in the Vars competition, NatWest competition. And then after that, obviously I got into Kent under 18s, under 17s, and under 18s. That's when they bring in divisional stuff for boys who aren't in the academies, who can't go to England, like this sort of England native, the academy team. So I done all the trials and stuff. I managed to get through to London South East, and then I got through to the weekend of playing for London South East against pretty sure it's the North, the Midlands, and is it Southwest? Yeah, the Southwest. So they had like a little weekend. We had a little weekend of playing against each other, and then the England county selectors were there, and then 2 days later, after the competition, I ended up getting a phone call saying, "Yeah, we want to take you on to do the 2-week tour of Ireland," which is really cool. And it was a really good opportunity because someone like myself, I didn't have the opportunity to get into an academy because I was never picked up. But there's still, I don't know if they do it now, but it was a good back then. I think it was before COVID, so it's always a good opportunity for me for myself to play high level rugby against boys who have been in academies. I think when I went to Ireland, I played with Ollie Chesham. He was my England counties captain. So I went through with Ollie and that, and we went over to Ireland and we had an amazing time. And also my school stuff was amazing because I just played with my mates.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't that, it's bad to say, but we wasn't that full school side. So we we were just like, you're here to play rugby, really, and try and get the school like known for rugby. So the teacher was really cool with us, and it was just really good, you know, living 24/7 rugby with my mates.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because like they do talk a lot about networking as you're growing up and being in the right schools and all that sort of stuff, and having, you know, played as part of state schools, you see the odd one or two manage to filter through. And they tend to be in fairly rugby dense areas as well. So like, you know, where you are in the southeast is a far more rugby dense area than say the northwest or something, which has a lot of rugby league influence and such. So trying to get the exposure to the right people there is quite important. And you know, I remember those county sessions and such like that. Again, I'm similar. I don't know whether they still do those sort of things. But that was basically one of the only opportunities you've got to then break through to these selectors who are usually hanging about private schools like Sir William Borlase and stuff like that around the country that you end up seeing a lot of talent come from. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we was both very, we worked extremely hard from a young age. We knew what we wanted to do. Our dad was very keen on us playing rugby. You know, he was obviously good at the club level rugby, and he was like, boys, you can make a career out of this. He obviously believed we was only playing for older Tamers, both of us, or I was playing for Sevenoaks at the time, and he was like, boys, you can do it. It was like, we just went up, we went all in, and we were both doing judo as well, funnily enough, and Beau made the GBR judo squad. So he had to choose at 18. It was either judo or rugby. So
I had a question about that as well.
Obviously chose the rugby path.
Yeah, I saw some clips. I saw some clips. I was like, of all the sports to probably lend itself to rugby, I imagine being a judoka helps. But yeah, I mean, what came the branch between that then?
Well, at the end of the day, you got to make a career out of it. You got to make money, don't you? You know, money, you can't live. So, much as I love my judo, really, honestly, I think from 17 to my under 18 season, without the judo, I don't think I would have, you know, got where I am now, because we're obviously like the help of Zak, but with the fitness level and it's just that repetitiveness of, you know, we're on the mat for about 3 hours training, and then we'll go to international camps, and that'll be 2 sessions a day, morning and night, for 3-4 days straight after a competition. Or if we'd go up to the GB centre, and you know, we'll be training twice a day as well, about 3 days straight. You know, it's a brutal sport, so that's why I think judo and rugby are
go hand in hand,
basically.
Yeah.
They literally go hand in hand. It's weird. It's a weird one to say, but it works like butter and bread, we would say.
Well, to be fair, it's interesting because back in the England system, they obviously used to use judo as a session for a lot of the professional guys, up until the Sam Jones injury and what came from that. So it was moving towards a place where they were really integrating a lot of combat sports into rugby, due to the training regime, and due to the physicality involved and the different muscles you use as well, right? Because obviously when you're gymming, when you're training, you tend to use the same sort of muscle patterns and such like that. That's using, you know, maybe strengthening things which are quite difficult to strengthen with a barbell. So that makes total sense. I guess for both of you, you sort of hinted upon it earlier, but you both went to France very early in your careers, which is still incredibly alien to a lot of those who have watched rugby all their lives. Like it's a naive thing within rugby. It's still in its infancy within rugby, that transfer. Whereas in other sports, obviously, you know, it's been happening for 30, 40, 50 years. So how did those moves come about for both of you in sort of a bit of detail, and how did you then go to make those decisions? I guess we can start with you, Zak, with Oyana.
Mate, I generally think I was one of the first ever boys to make the move over at a young age to France. It's over 10 years ago now that I made the move. Straight out of college, I went to Oyana, and I had the help of an agent. He sorted it all out for me. I think there was 3 boys. One of the boys went and played for Clermont, and then there was 2 of us. We both went to play in Oyana. And Oyana was really good, mate. They was obviously advanced for that in their Espoir, because they've got an Espoir system, which is an under 23 system, and they wanted to get foreign boys involved. Obviously, you get a lot of Georgians, you get a lot of you know, them sort of boys come in, big, powerful boys, and Oyana looked the other side. They was like, "Well, we get some English players here and see what they're all about." and got me and Dan Lewis was both at Saracens, got us both over. And yeah, it was a strange first few years, I have to say, moving over to France at a young age like that. But no, it was an incredible experience.
I
And
can
off
imagine.
the back of it, I become French qualified as well.
Yeah, exactly. I imagine like it would absolutely be intimidating, because you've kind of come through a system which, for better or worse, is network driven. It comes from a lot of the same schools, a lot of the same people, a lot of friends, all that sort of stuff. So it is, largely a very English base. Lots of people who've come through the same walks of life. But yeah, you're going over to France, of which they are pinching from lots of pools. Like I can't imagine some of the Georgian boys spoke the best of French or English, and probably, I don't know where your sort of upbringing came in terms of speaking French, but I can imagine that could be a tricky sort of cultural dilemma. But how did you sort of get over that in the early years?
Oh, funny enough, I did have a school teacher back at my old school in Dartford, where we're from, and he used to say to me, because they used to let me leave school early to go to train at Saracens on a Tuesday evening, so I'd leave school, get half days, you know what I mean? And then he would be like, mate, you've got to, I've never focused in my French lessons. He's like, Zak, you've got to focus, rugby's going over that way. I was like, all right, mate. All right, Mr. Turner, yeah. Never listening to him. My first ever contract I got was a French contract. I was like, oh my God, I should have listened to this guy.
Yeah.
But no, it was good. No, I did, I picked up French with, it took me about 2 years because they put you straight into lessons. I remember my first rugby session, the coach, he spoke fluent English. There was a few boys that spoke fluent English. As soon as training started, he said in French, no one speaks to Zak in English. I'm like, mate, what are we like running around trying to do these drills, not having a clue what's going on? Did it contact? Did it not contact? Then I'm getting smoked by some boys. It was a baptism of fire, but no, it was some of the best years of my life. Apart from, I did get quite badly injured. I done my ACL that first season.
Yeah.
Which they look after quite well over in France. They sent me to a rehab clinic, which is, I didn't speak any French, but when I went there, no one spoke English. So it was forced upon me to speak French. And I think that was really a blessing in disguise because I spoke French. And I think now I speak quite fluent French as well as Beau. So that really did help us, or help me.
I think a lot of people underestimate that in professional sport, the diversity within a side and how that can be made up. But getting exposure to it at the age that you did in your formative years, of which you can still do a lot of learning, you still got a lot of time to do a lot of learning as well, and before a lot of responsibilities come through, does make that transition slightly easier. So it does make sense to leave earlier, rather than what tends to be the last hurrah of a bit of cash towards the end of the career. But I guess for you, Beau, you followed suit sort of just pre-COVID, and you went to, I'm going to end up absolutely butchering, Soyo Angoulême.
Don't worry, I've heard some people butcher the name.
They always butcher it. Angoulême.
Angoulême. Well, I looked it up on YouTube and everyone was saying Angoulême, so like, I know I'm going to look like an absolute tit. But yeah, I could imagine, some of that move is inspired by Big Brother moving over there early, you moving over there early in your career, seeing what can come from there. But what were the other sort of contributing elements for you as to why you wanted to take that push so early in your career?
Because I had nothing else. And it was either take the option to come to France and follow my, or basically Zak, I owe my career to Zak, really. He kind of paved the way and I followed his footsteps. But I had no option. Unfortunately, I wasn't going to get picked up by a academy. I've never been in a Premiership academy, so I was never going to get that chance of going in there as it was so late. So I know Zak went through the system, and as you said, the under-23 system that you go into in France, you play 25 games a year, and I'm not too sure about the Premiership rugby, but you don't really get that many games a season. No. But like I went in and my first before COVID, I think I must have played about 15 games.
Yeah.
At a high level, which is like I'm playing with boys who are 23, 24. I'm just a fresh-faced 18-year-old English boy. I've been chucked into the French system. It's incredible, really. And my rugby developed so much. There's memories like Zak said as well. There's memories I have for a lifetime.
Yeah. It was all off the back of, I had a coach in my last coach in Oya, Adrian Bornetto. He's coaching Cognac at the moment, but when was in Oya was his top 14 coach, and he left that year and he went to Angoulême, and then he obviously it was in England. It's so different, mate. It's so hard to get a contract as a professional rugby player. It's so limited. I mean, you have to be right up there. You have to be a great player. I mean, boys develop at different ages. I mean, I can't say at 18 they would have been able to tell that I'm the player that I am today. Do you know what I mean? It's so hard. It's so niche. But you get a load of great players go for England, but I also do think there's so much talent that gets missed. And that's why the French system's so good, because they've got the under-23 system and so many boys develop later. I'd say I started playing my best rugby at 23, 24. That's when I really developed as a rugby player. And in England, would I have been able to wait until 23, 24 to get that crack at playing the Championship or even cracking the Premiership system, mate? I wouldn't, me personally, I wouldn't have given up, but you know, a lot of other boys would have given up, because it's a long time to wait, and you're not earning great money. Do you know what I mean? You can't really survive on National 1, National 2 money. It's not the same as France. But yeah, anyway, Adrian was my old coach, and he honestly wanted to take Beau over with him, so he sorted Beau out in Angoulême and then signed him up for 3 years, and then he become French qualified as well. You've both done your first 3 years, and then you become French qualified.
I think it's a super interesting
players, so.
Yeah, I think it's a super interesting point. The lack of talent that ends up passing through the British system, and there is, you know, there's elements which are there, which is just lack of professional sides, lack of structure based around it, the financial institutions not being there, and so on and so forth. But in positions like by both of yourselves, like it's quite well known within rugby that front rowers mature later. They have later, you know, longer careers. They last longer. You know, especially at the top standard. That's why you see so many, you know, top level international front rows are averaging ages of sort of the early to mid 30s, as opposed to being around that peak physical zone of sort of 28, 29. So it's similar with its second row as well. That's why you see, you know, what South Africa have done for a number of years, which is elongating the careers of their second rowers into that professional staging. So it is super interesting that when you look at some of the weaknesses in depth within the UK across, you know, all across the UK, you know, whether it's England, Wales, Scotland, whatever it might be, a lot of those weaknesses come in depth of front row standard, a lot of weaknesses at second row as well. It has been at times. And unless you're an absolute physical freak who has the right opportunity, right connection, signs the right contract with the right people, alongside the right base and the club that's moving in the right direction, it's so many variables there which don't necessarily push the talent. So, I mean, I was going to mention, you know, some of that, because obviously, you know, with you saying that you're at ONA for over half a decade, and ONA have a bunch of recent history, peaks and troughs within there, a club which is still growing. What did you feel was the differences during those formative years in terms of training, nutrition, what that looked like, and a community like that in comparison to somewhere like Saracens, for example, which has a bit of an elitist stigma?
Yeah, like Saracens obviously was, looking back at it now, like I said, 10 years later, it was great. You're under 18, you get given kit. You get, I had the honor of being able to train with the first team when all the boys went off to England, like 1 or 2 training sessions, you get brought up, and it was great. And then you'd eat with them. The food they'd eat was amazing. And then I went to Oyonnax. And I remember saying to the coach, mate, do I need to bring any kit with me? He's like, yeah, mate, bring as much kit as you can. You're not going to get any here. I was like training in my own kit. I was like, bloody hell, what's going on here? It was like it was a complete change in environments. Yeah, but the nutrition side of things, yeah, it's just, it's got better in France. But I mean, if they want to get you big, they're going to get you big, and you're going to be eating baguettes. You're going to be eating sausages. It's nothing like England, mate. They're going to get you big.
Well, that used to be,
lose weight, they just bully you.
Yeah, well, to be fair, that used to be the old stigma of French rugby, which is like half the issue there is that no one could get fit. Like, there's not a nutrition there to get fit.
There isn't.
Yeah, so that sort of makes sense. And I guess similarly for you, Beau, with France being what is like the premier hotbed of front rowers across the world at the moment, would you say there's anything that French sides do differently in terms of coaching and exposure to front rowers earlier, which is why they've become such a factory of top level front rowers?
It's just the training, and I think as a front row, what's really important is playing. Obviously, you can do 100 scrums a week, but there's nothing like a scrum in a game where you've got, you know, pressure. You know, you can have a scrum 5 meters out, and that's when that under 23 system comes in, because you've got young boys who, you know, who are training all week, and then they're playing that game, and then they get that experience. And you know, I remember my first year, bloody hell, I was getting you know, smashed every scrum, and I was getting quite embarrassed. I was only 18, but I'm going against boys who are 21. You know, some boys, like for example, I think I played.
You play some big names.
Yeah.
Back when we first started, you're allowed 4 professional players. So I remember playing against Cast, and there's I was only 19, 20. You got All Blacks running out, and you're like, it's meant to be an academy game, lads. What's going on here?
Yeah, that's right. You wouldn't see that with Amptill. or I doubt
No,
it.
no, do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, if you're coming back from injury, you can go and play for the SWR system, get some game time under your belt. And I was like, lads, this is insane.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a bit of a. I've got a bit of a three-pronged question then for you, because you've obviously had all of that exposure at a really young age. You're, playing against internationals early in your careers, getting tons of exposure, so on and so forth. But then I've got, a couple of questions, which are sort of one after the other. But Zak, you obviously went back to the championship. Or went back to the UK to the championship with Jersey, who are obviously one of those clubs who have publicly been hit with hard times most recently. Obviously, there's going to be a ton of differences there between the way the championship operates and the Pro D2, considering they are both the second tiers for both sort of Premier leagues. Have you spoken much to the folks at Jersey most recently and what happened there? And is there anything that you'd like to see implemented within those sort of formative years that you experienced with Oyonnax in the championship itself?
Yeah, I'm still in contact with obviously the coach there, Rob Webber. I speak to him sometimes. He's a great lad. He was a great coach. He obviously was just turned player coach when I first went there. And some of the S&C staff, I still speak to him because they did really change my career when I went there. I was I thought I was established and knew what I was all about. And I went there, and Jim Maloney and the S&C coaches at Jersey got me really fit and changed my way of training and how to train. But I think the main problem is the difference between the championship and the Pro D2 is just money, mate.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't, they put so much money into their clubs here. It's like the other day we run out. I mean, last season I run out for Agen and we played in front of 14,000 people in a stadium.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like you're getting the whole village behind you. And we're only playing Aurillac, which was like bottom of the table, but they just opened the new stadium. They got a band in, and it's like one of the biggest crowds I've ever played in front of. And it's just the little things like that. And I know Jersey's an island that they used to get a lot of people to the games, but I feel like personally they could have got more. Do you know what I mean? They could have. It's an island where I don't know. It's just hard to explain the championship. I don't know why they don't get a lot of big turnouts or why rugby's like that in England. It's heartbreaking really, because there's so many good players. I'm fortunate enough to be French qualified, so I can bounce between the two, especially with the new rules that are changing in France, where you need more French qualified players.
Yeah.
There's some great players in Jersey that just, do you know what I mean? They won't be able to crack it anymore.
I think it's really difficult because I do a lot of these sort of scouting pieces and all the rest of it in the championship, and the leg up between championship and premiership seems so otherworldly in comparison to the Pro D2 and the top 14, which is why part of that is you've got a competitive league structure which says relegated sides give exposure to playing rugby at the top level against sort of premiership level opposition, whereas you just don't get that in the UK.
No, that's it. Competitive side.
Yeah, so it is super tough. Like I've got a friend who's basically based 20 meters away from the Ealing stadium, and those guys struggle to get north of 1,000, 2,000 people at any one game, and you consider they're right at the top of the championship. The names that they've got at that club as well, so
great players at that club.
Yeah.
They play some great rugby as well. It's a good franchise. I just don't know how the championship's gonna survive, really, if I'm honest.
Well, I mean, supposedly they're in later talks now with the RFU towards nearing on a plan, and that involves scrapping, or at least scrapping the intensity of how big the stadium has to be. I think they might be bringing that down to 7,500. But it does seem like a pot kettle, because there's half the sides in the Premiership at the moment who struggle to bring in north of 7,500 on a good day anyway. I think since they got rid of that competitive tier system, it has obviously been difficult. And I guess for you, Beau, you obviously left Soyo, you went to Pyrenees for briefly, and you sort of t to and fro between them and Agen for a season or so. And then you've obviously had a breakthrough season so far this season. And you put up over 200 to 300 minutes so far this season. What's the experience been like, both on and off the pitch, playing for a side with the history of Agen, which have been around for the longest time, such a strong fan base, like you alluded to already, 14,500 people turning up to a game when you've probably gone from growing up with your friends and family who are being around. So what's that been like?
So for me, it's been quite amazing. It's been I made my pro debut with Angoulême when I was 21. So in my last season there, and they had a great fan base. That's a small town, but we're getting 5,000, 6,000 people. Stadium so close to the pitch, it's amazing. And then, like you said, I went down to Tarbes. I was only at Tarbes for 6 months, and then You know, lucky a little bit of help from my big brother. You know,
Yeah, I had to sort him out, didn't I?
a bit of
I
help
had to
with
sort him out.
there was a couple of injuries and tied in Agen, and my brother went. Well, I wasn't getting played. I didn't play much at all.
He played one game off the bench in second row. So I think the coach had underestimated him a little bit.
So you know, I won't get put to use. You know what I mean? Like, and then Zach went. Well, it's been during the week of that game. Funny enough, you went. You might come to a trial on Sunday, so be ready. And then 2 weeks later was in Agen. You left Tarbes, went to Agen, and it's been amazing. It's been a dream come true, really, to play high level rugby, Pro D2. You know, I missed out on that on Angoulême because the year we went down, I was too young to play. They weren't playing because I was just too young. I got my shot. But then I remember my first game in Pro D2 was amazing. It was ruin. And funny enough, the coach is nice enough to bring us off the bench together. So we, you know, for our family, it was something amazing. It's something our mum and dad dreamt of, really. You know, they've been very much in the driving force behind both of us. You know, with like from the money wise, travel wise, our dad and mum to come everywhere with us. Dad used to come fishing in France, and you know, come back from France to watch us play rugby and take us somewhere. So you know, for the family in general, it was a very good. When I signed, it was amazing. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it seems difficult to explain to a lot of UK-based sort of listeners and viewers and those who watch the Premiership the magnitude of what the Pro D2 is. So when I constantly link players from the Pro D2 to where they should go to the Premiership or in the URC or whoever it might be, they can't sort of comprehend. You know, why would you be looking at second-tier rugby for that? But then you consider, like, you look at somebody like well, yeah, you look at Biarritz, for example, who have had a pretty tough season, who are sort of languishing towards the bottom of the Pro D2, although they're having a bit of a sort of late resurgence. They've got people like Jonathan Josephs and stuff playing for them, who a season ago were playing top level rugby, were international, so on and so forth, and they're struggling. So I think it's a really important point to raise, that the quality of the Pro D2 is far unlike what a lot of people expect it to be, and especially over the last 4 years or so, it's been improving year upon year, and since a lot of the changes most recently. And I think one thing which might be important to explain from both of you is that there's obviously a difference in league structure there as well, in how the table works. So the Pro D2 obviously works different in terms of playoffs and relegation and promotion of sides. So what does that look like for you guys? Obviously, you're sat, is it 9th or 10th at the moment, or you might be a bit higher than that?
The ninth at the moment.
But
it's a very disappointing season. Disappointing, but we wanted to be top 2. We had a meeting before the season started. Obviously, we done really well last season, and we wanted to be top 2 this year, or definitely in the top 6. So we struggled a bit at the beginning of the season. We couldn't win any away games, and obviously we've got an away win under our belt now. The boys are really confident that we're gonna crack on this next few blocks. We've got a few games coming up. You know, we can really get our teeth stuck into. The aim is to finish in the top 6 and have a playoff. Like, the dream would be to finish 4th or 3rd and have a home semi-final, or 1st and 2nd, and to get a home semi-final. Do you know what I mean? That's the dream for us, because we know the whole village will get behind us, the whole city, and it'll be a sellout. And that 16th man really does make the difference sometimes. So that's our goal at the moment.
Well, you're only 4 points away from the top 6 anyway. So and that probably proves how close this season. So the season's been super competitive. It's been one of the most exciting leagues in Europe so far this season, and especially when you see new names really leading the way, like people like Van, for example, who are having a fantastic season, not necessarily unexpected, but they've got a great side that's pulling together, making a real push at the moment. And I think a lot of people forget the amount of history that's already in that league. And when you look at somebody like Biarritz, for example, who are towards the bottom of the table, they've been in European finals. They've won European finals. They've had people like Yashvili and Betson and such like that play for them in the past. So I definitely understand the sort of feeling behind that. And I guess for you both, and feel free to put your opinions forward. But is there anything else in the French system that you think would really benefit England, or in the reverse, anything that the UK system is doing at the moment, which is impacting it from really pushing on like the French tier system is going at the moment?
100% is. I know they've got the A-League in the Premiership. I don't even know if they've still got the A-League games or what the crack is there, or if they just send their boys on loan to Championship, the Premiership clubs. But they have to create I don't know how they're going to do it if they get the financial backing, but they have to create an under-23 league or under-21 league. I think it's under-21s in France now. They've cut it down.
Yeah.
You have to have that. You have to let the boys. You have to let them boys develop. Keep them around. You know, let them develop because you'll get so much more talent come through. Them boys. Some boys don't develop till later. You just have to really let them boys grow and develop. You know, at 18, yeah, like I said, me and Beau are completely different players to what we are now.
Yeah.
Physically and how we play aggressively, what we've learned. You know, give them boys a few more years. I mean, at 18, you don't really know who you are.
Yeah.
And what you are as a player. They need a couple more years to develop. And that, I reckon, if they start creating a system like that in England, it could really benefit. And you get a lot more players that want to stay on and play rugby. You know, you don't have to give them massive contracts. You give them enough to survive. I'm not talking about giving them $2,000 a year. I've heard some dodgy contracts from some clubs. Boys get $2,000 a year, you know. Don't give them those contracts. Give them a little bit of money. Look after them, you know. And then when you looked after, you want to play well. And you want to develop as a rugby player because it's what you want to be. It's what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you see it happen in football in the UK, and it's worked wonders. And they have professional players given exposure regularly within football. Like it's weird that there isn't a process like that, considering there is a massive academy structure behind these Premiership sides, that they're not getting more out of that and more exposure, and there's not more, I guess, synergy across the league to create something that looks like that. One thing that I am conscious of, we got 5 minutes left on the call. I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you both, which are a bit more individual. First one for both of you, go-to workout song / artist. The reason I'm asking it is that every time Zak puts up a photo of himself looking great in the gym, there's usually a hip hop song behind it on Instagram. Yeah. So I imagine there's a reason behind that.
I love my rap. What am I going for? Oh, you've caught me way off guard. Go on, you're first. What's yours? He's the DJ of the family.
I'm better. It depends on how I'm feeling. I'll go straight off feeling.
Straight on house music. Straight into house music.
Yeah.
Well, have you not picked up any French music yet?
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
Not the same.
No,
yeah.
They say the English have got the good music and the French have got the good food. That's the saying over here.
Well, yeah, I was going to say French or British nutrition.
Yeah. I'd say English. British, mate.
British all day.
You can't beat fish and chips.
Or
hardest rugby player you've played alongside or against?
Maury Fasavalou. Big Mo. I played with him. Beast, mate.
Yeah.
And he used to tell me if I wasn't tough enough, he'd take me into a dark room and make me tougher. So he's one scary bloke to be around.
How old are you?
I was 18 at the time.
What about you,
yeah, go on, Beau.
That's a good question. I've not played with many big boys, but obviously he has to think it's him. But you know, I played some Elton. We had Elton here. You know, he was a perfect. You know, I don't want to speak about outside rugby, but he was in rugby. He was a tough mother, and he was very professional. And he was hot shit on his training. Yeah. So Elton was probably
Elton Gentis, yeah.
Yeah, he was a good bloke to be. Rather than Zak.
Beau, quick one for you. We've obviously already mentioned you being a judoka. Are you into any other combat sports? If so, what are you enjoying at the moment?
Oh, we love a bit of boxing, don't we? We love boxing. Yeah, we love a bit of boxing.
All right, who's your favourite boxer then?
Oh, well, it's got to be Fury, isn't it?
Fury. You always sit in one camp.
Yeah.
Well, I live in Wales, so it's always going to be Joe Calzaghe. Like, it never changes. We haven't had another one since, so you got no chance. Yeah.
If you look at boxing, watch out for my mate Jack Oliphant. He's coming through.
Yeah. We'll put a note on. Favorite player growing up, both of you?
Wilkinson,
Lewis Moody.
Hard as nails, like yeah, proper flanker.
Yeah, he was.
So I guess for both of you, I know it's a quick question, but what sort of comes next? What's the dream to move forward for? You know, club wise, domestic, whatever it might look like.
Tough to say. I don't know. We're both French qualified, like we said. We want to stay in France at the moment. But yeah, there is also a dream of going back home, playing back home, trying to crack the Premiership. That's always been a big thing for both of us. I don't know when it will happen, if it will happen. We're both very happy at the moment.
Yeah.
I know Beau's just signed another 2 years, so he's locked down. He's going to smash Agen for another 2 years, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Congratulations. No, thanks very much for coming on. Obviously we'll stay in touch with other bits and pieces that progress. And best of luck with the end of the season. Like, make sure you smash it, and then I'll come visit. I'll come visit over. Yeah, absolutely.
Whenever you want to come over, mate, there's some tickets for you. Don't worry about that.
What a treat. I'll go down and tell my wife now to cancel the holiday.
Yeah. You get some tickets sorted out, mate. Definitely come over and have a watch.
It'd be great.
Nice one.